Steelers, Ravens, round 3. I mean, would we really have any other matchup for these two teams, round 1 of the playoffs? Divisional rivals going at it again, this time for everything.
Hey, this is going to be a really good one. This is going to be one of those games I'm definitely going to key into. Um, you can't really use that argument of coaches for this one, kind of like what I did for the Texans and Chargers. Uh, these are two Hall of Fame coaches. Tomlin versus Harbaugh, both Super Bowl champions. If y'all take a look at the numbers, 319.4 yards per game on offense for the Steelers, and the Ravens have 424.9. So clearly, over 100 yards more per game for the Ravens. So a big thing that you're going to have to see for the Steelers is they're going to have to play a little bit of keep away. They're going to play a little bit of keep away, try to get the ball out of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's hands as much as possible, control the time of possession, because their defense is better. Their defensive yardage per game is lower than the Ravens by about 20 or so yards. So you can win the defensive battle, but it's something else that I'm really looking at. Over the last 8 games, the Steelers' defense has gotten worse. The first 9, they were giving up 16.2 points per game. The last 8, they were giving up 25.1. While if you look at the Ravens, their first 9, they're giving up 24.3. Their last 8, they're giving up 17.8. So Zach Orr has these guys fired up and playing a lot better late in the season, and this is when it really starts to matter. So if you want to keep on doing with the trends, Steelers' defense is getting worse, Ravens' defense is getting better, and then when you already have that super wide margin in terms of offensive capabilities, this just has to be a game where if you're the Steelers, time of possession is your best friend. Time of possession and the field position game, those yards in between stats, that's what's going to have to matter for you. So what y'all thinking?
Well, what you said with time of possession, that's a really interesting thing because so you'd think time of possession, all right, so we're going to have a game plan and a very Steelers-like game plan. We're going to run the ball. We're going to be a heavy run team. We're going to pound it, just try and hold on to it, keep the Ravens off the field. The Ravens have the number 1 rush defense in the entire league, so that game plan is not going to work against them. If you want to beat their defense, you got to throw the ball because they have the 31st ranked passing defense in the league. Russ is going to have to find a way to cook this game, which is a little bit counterintuitive to the whole time of possession game, because when Russ is cooking, it's him taking deep shots, him having explosive plays, which means Lamar gets right back out there on the field. This is a really tough matchup for the Steelers. And I also am glad that you brought up the point of how their defenses are trending. The Steelers did have some tougher matchups in the back half of the season, which definitely hurt them, but at the same time, you can say, well, all right, maybe it's a combination of injuries, maybe it's this, but if you're playing good teams and you're struggling to stop them, you're going to play good teams in the playoffs, and that's who you have to be able to beat. So that's a big question mark. Is their defense going to be able to hold up, especially when they have an offense that lots of times isn't on the field for long and doesn't give you a lot of rest? Meanwhile, the Ravens, their defense is getting a lot better. Yes, some of it is definitely they played a very easy schedule on the back half, and that is a huge reason for the defense's improvement. But the other reason is Zach Orr. He's having time with him and their pretty much entire defensive staff was a brand new staff this year. So their team, year goes by, they're starting to figure things out together, they're starting to click. They're getting hot at the right time on that end. As long as they don't beat themselves and do the stupid thing that they like to do lots of times where they make Lamar throw it way more than they should when they have Derrick Henry, they're a formidable team, and it's just a really bad matchup for the Steelers. And I know they've gotten the best of them once this season, but it's going to be tough if they want to do it again.
So, I mean, look, I've seen all on Twitter that Steelers fans, they wanted to lose to the Bengals, or lose to the Bengals and whoever they played last week, so they would have this game against the Ravens. And I'm confused because I'm sitting here looking at everything, not even stat wise, just in general. Why do you want the Ravens? I understand it's a divisional matchup, anything can happen and everything like that, especially in the playoffs. But I don't see the entice with them playing the Ravens, especially at the Ravens. And I think one of the stats that we look at for the Ravens, is their run defense. Is it really the run defense is that good, or is it they just been ahead, a lot, and people are having to pass to catch up against them? And I think that's where you see the majority of it, their run defense be successful. Like, their run defense is number 1 in the league. Their pass defense, on the other hand, is 31st. And their defense isn't bad. I just think that's more of a stat saying that they're ahead and teams are having to catch up. But having said that, there's no way that the Steelers are winning this game.
So
There's just no
when you
way.
talk about their run defense, this is something else I'm looking into, right? Look at their division. Look at the running backs in their division. They're playing them twice. Najee Harris isn't really a premier back. Nick Chubb is gone all year, right? Jerome Ford not really helping you out there. There's not really a super world-beating back in that division.
Besides Chase Brown, who's the GOAT, but
okay, well, they were playing around with. They were playing around with.
Back anyway.
Yeah, he's pass catching. They don't really run the ball that much, and they're playing around with.
This is also just me having Chase Brown in all my fantasy leagues because I drafted him. So.
Yeah, well, see, I had Zach Moss in the first half. It's all right. Hey, we both came out on top in some regards. But I mean, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, Najee Harris, Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb coming off of an injury and then getting hurt again. So that's accounting for what, 6 of your games?
6 games. Yeah.
So that's just something you gotta look at. But it is true though that with the Ravens, I noticed that when they do lose in the playoffs, it's because they get out of what they do best, and it frustrates me when they do that because to me they should be kind of like a team that breaks you with the run, uses play action, but even though they're not even really using play action, but they like going in the shotgun a lot of times. Derrick Henry, he's noted that he loves the pistol when they do it, and I like it when they go pistol also. I like the results that it gets, the defense, they're getting on point. Like, hey, he's finna run. What I don't like is when they take out Derrick Henry, you kind of tipping your hand at what you're doing at that point. I don't know if Justice Hill is going to play this next game. I think he was out last week. Keaton Mitchell, he's in there. He's a nice young back with some decent potential. But you're tipping your hand a little bit. Keaton Mitchell's in the game. They're probably passing or this is designed for Lamar Jackson. So I feel like, once again, I've been saying it all year, utilize Derrick Henry on the field as much as possible. I noticed in the last game they were using him in the pass a little bit more, so that kind of helped out with bending the defense a little bit, stretching them out a little bit. Pause. Hold on. If you're the Ravens, just keep doing what you're doing. I don't think you'll get behind in this game, but the Steelers do make games pretty dirty. I mean, not dirty in a bad way. They bring you down to their level. They make it a dog fight in the trenches, and that's what it's going to have to be. And I feel like it's kind of like with the Eagles, right? Keep hammering with Saquon, and then second half roll around, floodgates open. So use Derrick Henry, man. They lowered his carries down this year by a large margin. He should be fresh, ready to go in the playoffs. So that's a key.
I think go ahead.
And that's a good point, but it's also just like the only way the Steelers win this game is if they control time of possession. I think the best plan for the Ravens is to go out there guns blazing. Like, just get ahead. If you can get ahead, the Steelers are not catching up in the passing game. They're not. It's just not happening. Russell Wilson is not that guy. Arthur Smith will not cook up anything good, like you said earlier. If the Ravens get up by 2 scores, even in the first quarter, it's over with. I mean, can you do that with just Derrick Henry? Absolutely. But I think I think you got to get ahead. If you get ahead early as the Ravens, it's barbecue chicken. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you do, but really, that's the thing. What Calvin said, how they dirty up the game, how they do all that. This is an AFC North matchup. If the Steelers are going to win, they have to win it in AFC North fashion. It has to be a defensive game. It has to be a physical game. You cannot let Lamar get onto his game. You cannot let Derrick Henry get onto his game. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I don't know. Really what I'm trying to say here is there's not much of a path for the Steelers to win, but it is a divisional game. These are 2 teams that know each other well, know how to beat each other, and you build your teams to beat your divisional opponents. So that is what we're going to try and do here for the Steelers. We're going to try and say we know how to beat them. We might not be capable of doing it, but we're going to try our best to go play it on our terms and throw them off. But at the same time, I mean, I think really what it comes down to, besides the Ravens just being the better team, the ESPN headline that you have right here on the screen. Fulgham explains why he's taking an ascending Ravens team against a struggling Steelers team. The Steelers team is 4-5 in their last 9 games versus a 6-2 Ravens in their last 8. The Ravens have been getting hot at the right time while the Steelers have been falling off, and I think that's really what it all boils down to. But Calvin, you got any closing thoughts on this?
No, I'm ready for predictions.
Well, I mean, I don't think we really need to make predictions. I think we're Ravens across the board.
Yeah.
If the Steelers win, good for them. Shout out Mike Tomlin if they win that, because he has kind of had a narrative that, yes, he's won in the Super Bowl. He's won the biggest game, but they've kind of struggled in the playoffs more recently. This would be a great game to try and break that narrative, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, it would be a good game for Russ, too. Look, there's a lot of narratives around Russ, too, and if Russ can get back in playoff form in his prime when he was with the Seahawks, then more power to him.